Letter 22 by Charles Lamb. Begun Sunday, February 5, 1797. Dated on address by mistake, January 5, 1797. Sunday morning. You cannot surely mean to degrade the Joan of Arc into a pot girl. You are not going, I hope, to annex to that most splendid ornament of Southey's poem all this cock, and a bull story of Joan the publican's daughter of Neufchatel, with the lamentable episode of a waggoner, his wife, and 6 children. The texture will be most lamentably disproportionate. The first 40 or 50 lines of these addenda are, no doubt, in their way admirable too, but many would prefer the Joan of Southey. On mightiest deeds to brood of shadowy vastness, such as made my heart throb fast. Anon I paused, and in a state of half-expectance listened to the wind. They wondered at me who had known me once a cheerful, careless damsel. The eye, that of the circling throng and of the visible world unseeing, saw the shapes of holy fantasy. I see nothing in your description of the maid equal to these. There is a fine originality certainly in those lines, for she had lived in this bad world as in a place of tombs, and touched not the pollutions of the dead. But your fierce vivacity is a faint copy of the fierce and terrible benevolence of Southey. Added to this, that it will look like rivalship in you, and extort a comparison with S., I think to your disadvantage, and the lines, considered in themselves as an addition to what you had before written, strains of a far higher mood, are but such as Madame Fancy loves in some of her more familiar moods, at such times as she has met Noel Goldsmith, and walked and talked with him, calling him old acquaintance. Southey certainly has no pretensions to vie with you in the sublime of poetry, but he tells a plain tale better than you. I will enumerate some woeful blemishes, some of 'em sad deviations from that simplicity which was your aim. Hailed who might be near, the canvas coverture moving, by the by, is laughable. A woman and 6 children, by the way, why not 9 children? It would have been just half as pathetic again. Statues of sleep they seemed. Frost-mangled wretch, green putridity. Hailed him immortal, rather ludicrous again. Voiced a sad and simple tale, abominable, unprovendered. Such his tale. Ah, suffering to the height of what was suffered, a most insufferable line, amazements of affright. The heart-sore brain attributes its own hues of ghastliness and torture. What shocking confusion of ideas! In these delineations of common and natural feelings, in the familiar walks of poetry, you seem to resemble Montauban dancing with Raubin's tenants. Much of his native loftiness remained in the execution. I was reading your religious musings the other day, and sincerely I think it the noblest poem in the language, next after the Paradise Lost, and even that was not made the vehicle of such grand truths. There is one mind, and see down to Almighty's throne, are without a rival in the whole compass of my poetical reading, stands in the sun and with no partial gaze views all creation. I wish I could have written those lines. I rejoice that I am able to relish them. The loftier walks of Pindus are your proper region. There you have no compeer in modern times. Leave the lowlands unenvied, in possession of such men as Cowper and Southey. Thus am I pouring balsam into the wounds I may have been inflicting on my poor friend's vanity. In your notice of Southey's new volume you omit to mention the most pleasing of all, the miniature. There were who formed high hopes and flattering ones of thee, young Robert, spirit of Spenser. Was the wanderer wrong? Fairfax I have been in quest of a long time. Johnson in his Life of Waller gives a most delicious specimen of him, and adds, in the true manner of that delicate critic, as well as amiable man, it may be presumed that this old version will not be much read after the elegant translation of my friend, Mr. Hoole. I endeavoured, I wished to gain some idea of Tasso from this Mr. Hoole, the great boast and ornament of the India House, but soon desisted. I found him more vapid than smallest small beer sun-vinegared. Your dream down to that exquisite line, I can't tell half his adventures, is a most happy resemblance of Chaucer. The remainder is so-so. The best line, I think, is, he belonged, I believe, to the witch Melancholy. By the way, when will our volume come out? Don't delay it till you have written a new Joan of Arc. Send what letters you please by me, and in any way you choose, single or double. The Indiaco is better adapted to answer the cost than the generality of my friends' correspondence. Such poor and honest dogs as John Thelwall, particularly. I cannot say I know Carlson, at least intimately. I once supped with him and Allen. I think his manners very pleasing. I will not tell you what I think of Lloyd, for he may by chance come to see this letter, and that thought puts a restraint on me. I cannot think what subject would suit your epic genius. Some philosophical subject, I conjecture, in which shall be blended the sublime of poetry and of science. Your proposed hymns will be a fit preparatory study wherewith to discipline your young novitiate soul. I grow dull. I'll go walk myself out of my dullness. Sunday night. You and Sarah are very good to think so kindly and so favourably of poor Mary. I would to God all did so too. But I very much fear she must not think of coming home in my father's lifetime. It is very hard upon her. But our circumstances are peculiar, and we must submit to them. God be praised she is so well as she is. She bears her situation as one who has no right to complain. My poor old aunt, whom you have seen, the kindest, goodest creature to me when I was at school, who used to toddle there to bring me fag when I, schoolboy-like, only despised her for it, and used to be ashamed to see her come and sit herself down on the old coal-hole steps as you went into the old grammar school, and opened her apron and bring out her basin, with some nice thing she had caused to be saved for me. The good old creature is now lying on her death-bed. I cannot bear to think on her deplorable state. To the shock she received on that our evil day, from which she never completely recovered, I impute her illness. She says, poor thing, she is glad she is come home to die with me. I was always her favourite. No after friendship e'er can raise the endearments of our early days, nor e'er the heart such fondness prove, as when it first began to love. Lloyd has kindly left me for a keepsake, John Woolman. You have read it, he says, and like it. Will you excuse one short extract? I think it could not have escaped you. Small treasure to a resigned mind is sufficient. How happy is it to be content with a little, to live in humility, and feel that in us which breathes out this language, Abba, Father. I am almost ashamed to patch up a letter in this miscellaneous sort, but I please myself in the thought that anything from me will be acceptable to you. I am rather impatient, childishly so, to see our names affixed to the same common volume. Send me 2 when it does come out. 2 will be enough, or indeed 1, but 2 better. I have a dim recollection that, when in town, you were talking of the origin of evil as a most prolific subject for a long poem. Why not adopt it, Coleridge? There would be room for imagination, or the description from a vision or dream, suppose, of an utopia in one of the planets, the moon, for instance, or a 5 days' dream which shall illustrate in sensible imagery Hartley's 5 motives to conduct. Sensation 1, imagination 2, ambition 3, sympathy 4, theopathy 5, first banquets, music, etc., effeminacy and their insufficiency. 2d, beds of hyacinth and roses where young Adonis oft reposes, Fortunate Isles, the pagan Elysium, etc., etc., poetical pictures, antiquity as pleasing to the fancy, their emptiness, madness, etc., 3d, warriors, poets, some famous yet more forgotten, their fame or oblivion now alike indifferent, pride, vanity, etc., 4th, all manner of pitiable stories in Spenser-like verse, love, friendship, relationship, and see 5th, hermits, Christ and his apostles, martyrs, heaven and sea, etc. An imagination like yours, from these scanty hints, may expand into 1,000 great ideas, if indeed you at all comprehend my scheme, which I scarce do myself. Monday morn, a London letter, 9/12. Look you, master poet, I have remorse as well as another man, and my bowels can sound upon occasion. But I must put you to this charge, for I cannot keep back my protest, however ineffectual, against the annexing your latter lines to those former, this putting of new wine into old bottles. This my duty done, I will cease from writing till you invent some more reasonable mode of conveyance. Well may the ragged followers of the 9 set up for Fluxinos what do you call emists, and I do not wonder that in their splendid visions of utopias in America they protest against the admission of those yellow-complexioned, copper-coloured, white-livered gentlemen who never proved themselves their friends. Don't you think your verses on a young ass too trivial a companion for the religious musings? Scoundrel monarch, alter that, and the man of Ross is scarce admissible as it now stands curtailed of its fairer half. Reclaim its property from the Chatterton, which it does but encumber, and it will be a rich little poem. I hope you expunge great part of the old notes in the new edition. That in particular, most barefaced, unfounded, impudent assertion, that Mr. Rogers is indebted for his story to Loch Lomond, a poem by Bruce. I have read the latter. I scarce think you have. Scarce anything is common to them both. The poor author of The Pleasures of Memory was sorely hurt, Dyer says, by the accusation of unoriginality. He never saw the poem. I long to read your poem on Burns. I retain so indistinct a memory of it. In what shape and how does it come into public? As you leave off writing poetry till you finish your hymns, I suppose you print now all you have got by you. You have scarce enough unprinted to make a 2d volume with Lloyd. Tell me all about it. What is become of Cowper? Lloyd told me of some verses on his mother. If you have them by you, pray send 'em me. I do so love him, never mind their merit. Maybe I may like 'em, as your taste and mine do not always exactly identify. Yours. Coleridge intended to print in his new edition the lines that he had contributed to Southey's Joan of Arc, 1796, with certain additions, under the title The Progress of Liberty, or The Visions of the Maid of Orleans. Writing to Cottle, Coleridge had said, I much wish to send my visions of the Maid of Arc and my corrections to Wordsworth, and to Lamb, whose taste and judgment I see reason to think more correct and philosophical than my own, which yet I place pretty high. Lamb's criticisms are contained in this letter. Coleridge abandoned his idea of including the poem in the 1797 edition, and the lines were not separately published until 1817 in Sibylline Leaves under the title The Destiny of Nations. Montauban, Raubin, an illustration from Henry Mackenzie's novel Julia de Raubin, 1777, from which Lamb took hints a little later for the structure of part of his story Rosamund Grey. This is the passage in Religious Musings that Lamb particularly praises. There is one mind, one omnipresent mind omnific, his most holy name is love, truth of subliming import, with the which who feeds and saturates his constant soul, he from his small particular orbit flies with blessed outstarting. From himself he flies, stands in the sun, and with no partial gaze views all creation, and he loves it all and blesses it and calls it very good. This is indeed to dwell with the Most High. Cherubs and rapture-trembling seraphim can press no nearer to the Almighty's throne. Southey's new volume, which Coleridge had noticed, was his poems, second edition, Vol. I, 1797. The poem in question was on my own miniature picture taken at 2 years of age. Edward Fairfax's Tasso, Godfrey of Boulogne, or The Recovery of Jerusalem, was published in 1600. John Hoole, a later translator, became principal auditor at the India House and resigned in 1786. He died in 1803. Coleridge's dream was the poem called The Raven. Citizen John Thelwall, 1764–1834, to whom many of Coleridge's early letters are written, was a Jacobin enthusiast who had gone to the Tower with Thomas Hardy and Home, took in 1794, but was acquitted at his trial. At this time he was writing and lecturing on political subjects. When, in 1818, Thelwall acquired the Champion, Lamb wrote squibs for it against the Regent and others. Coulson was perhaps Thomas Coulson, a friend of Sir Humphrey Davy and the father of Walter Coulson, born 1794, who was called the Walking Encyclopedia, and was afterwards a friend of Hazlitt. To discipline your young novitiate soul, a line from Religious Musings, 1796. I discipline my young novitiate thought. My poor old aunt. Lamb's lines on his Aunt Hetty repeat some of this praise, as also does the Elia essay on Christ's Hospital. John Woolman, 1720–1772, an American Quaker. His works comprise a journal of the life, gospel, labors, and Christian experiences of that faithful minister of Jesus Christ, John Woolman, and his last epistle and other writings. Lamb often praised the book. A London Letter, 912. A word on the postal system of those days may not be out of place. The cost of the letter when a franc had not been procured was borne by the recipient. The rate varied with the distance. The charge from London to Bridgewater in 1797 was 7d. Later it was raised to 9d and 10d. No regular post was set up between Bridgewater and Nether Stowey until 1808, when the cost of the carriage of a letter for the intervening 9 miles was 2d. Flocksci, see note on page Roman 2. The young ass, early versions, ended thus: soothed to rest the tumult of some scoundrel monarch's breast. Coleridge changed the last line to the aching of pale fashion's vacant breast. Coleridge had asserted, in a 1796 note, that Rogers had taken the story of Florio in the Pleasures of Memory from Michael Bruce's Loch Leven, not Loch Lomond. In the 1797 edition, another note made apology for the mistake. Cowper's lines on the receipt of my mother's picture out of Norfolk had been written in the spring of 1790. It is interesting to find Lamb reading them just now, for his own blank verse poems, shortly to be written, have much in common with Cowper's verses, not only in manner but in matter.